Hey everyone, gather close, because I'm about to tell you about a time I orchestrated something elaborate, something deceptive, something that felt like playing with dynamite right in the heart of my own life. You know how sometimes things just don't add up? Little inconsistencies, weird vibes, that gut feeling telling you something's wrong, even when everything on the surface looks picture perfect. That's where I was, living in that confusing space between love and suspicion. And it pushed me to do something drastic. I pretended to go on a long business trip, waved goodbye, drove towards the airport, and then, days later, under the cover of absolute darkness, I let myself back into my own house at 3 a.m. Because I had reached a point where the not knowing was infinitely worse than whatever terrible truth I might uncover. Me and Olivia, we were supposed to be solid. 7 years together, the last 3 married. We had the nice house in the suburbs, the 2 cars, the shared Netflix account, the whole 9 yards. We were comfortable, maybe too comfortable. Looking back, maybe the comfort-bred complacency allowed things to fester unnoticed. Because somewhere along the line, the comfort started feeling cold, strained. It began subtly, maybe 6 months ago. Olivia started becoming more private. She'd always been an open book, mostly. We talked about everything. But suddenly, her phone had a new passcode she forgot to share. She started angling the screen away when she texted, quickly closing apps if I walked into the room unexpectedly. When I asked, she'd laugh it off. Just work stuff, boring emails, or chatting with my sister, girl talk. Fair enough. But it happened all the time. And there was a slight edge to her voice, a defensiveness that pricked at my unease. Then came the changes in routine. She started working late more often. Now, Olivia's dedicated, she's ambitious in her marketing career, so late nights weren't unheard of. But the frequency increased dramatically. And when she came home, she seemed wired differently. Sometimes exhausted and withdrawn, needing immediate space. Other times, almost unnaturally cheerful, a little too bright-eyed for someone who supposedly just finished a 10-hour workday, followed by a stressful commute. The explanations felt rehearsed. Traffic was insane. Meeting ran super late. Just grabbing a bite with the team. Vague. Always vague. And the girls' nights. Suddenly, there were more of them. Drinks after work, weekend brunches. Again, totally normal, right? I wanted her to have her friends, her own life. But when I'd ask who she was out with, the names sometimes shifted, or the details of the evening felt fuzzy. Once, I bumped into Sarah, one of her supposed girls' night companions, at the grocery store the next day. I casually mentioned hoping they had fun last night. Sarah looked utterly confused. Last night? Oh, I stayed in. Just watched movies. Was Olivia out? The blood drained from my face. I mumbled something about getting my days mixed up and practically ran out of the store. Why would Olivia lie about something so simple? Unless the girls' night wasn't a girls' night at all. That incident was a turning point. The gnawing suspicion turned into a sickening certainty that something was fundamentally wrong. I tried talking to her directly multiple times. Liv, honey, is everything okay? You seem distant. Are you happy? Are we okay? Each time, it was like hitting a wall. She'd get defensive. Mark, stop being so insecure. Everything is fine. I'm just stressed with this new campaign. Or she'd turn it around, making me feel guilty. Why can't you just trust me? Do you think I'm doing something wrong? The gaslighting, intentional or not, was incredibly effective. It made me doubt my own sanity. Was I projecting my own insecurities? Was I being controlling? I loved her, desperately. The thought that she might be betraying me was agonizing, but the thought that I might be unjustly accusing her, poisoning our relationship with my own paranoia, was almost worse. But the little lies, the inconsistencies, they kept accumulating, like dripping water eroding stone. An expensive new dress she claimed was a gift from her mom, but her mom later mentioned she hadn't seen Olivia in weeks. Her sudden insistence on doing her own laundry separately, just easier that way, she claimed, though we'd always shared the chore. Finding a single earring, definitely not hers, down the side of the passenger seat in her car. She swore it must have belonged to her colleague Brenda after they carpooled once, but it looked way too flashy for Brenda. Each incident, taken alone, could maybe, possibly, be explained away. But together, they formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. Then came the mention of the business trip. My company had been planning a major international project launch, requiring a team lead to be on-site in Europe for at least a week, possibly longer, coordinating things. My boss had floated my name as a possibility weeks ago. When I mentioned it to Olivia, her reaction was strange. Not disappointment, not concern, but almost relief, followed by a quick performance of supportive wife duties. Oh wow, honey, that's a great opportunity. A whole week though? I'll miss you like crazy. But her eyes didn't quite match the sentiment. There was a flicker of something else there. Calculation? Opportunity? A few days later, my boss confirmed it. I got the assignment. A 10-day trip to Berlin, starting the following Monday. When I told Olivia the dates were set, her supportive act kicked into high gear. We'll have to make the most of this weekend then, she chirped, maybe a little too brightly. And don't worry about me, I'll be fine. Maybe I'll finally tackle organizing the garage while you're gone. The forced cheerfulness felt completely off. My gut screamed that this trip, my prolonged absence, was exactly what she wanted. Why? The question hung heavy in the air between us, unspoken but deafening. That weekend, the idea began to form. It felt insane, risky, borderline psychotic. But the thought of being thousands of miles away for 10 days, picturing her, doing what? Who was she texting? Who was she having girls' nights with? Who owned that earring? The uncertainty became unbearable. I couldn't go. Not like this. Not with this poison clouding every thought. What if I didn't go to Berlin? What if I pretended to go? The plan felt like something out of a bad spy movie. I'd make a big show of it. Pack my bags, carefully selecting clothes I wouldn't actually need. Let her drive me to the airport Monday morning. Go through the motions of checking in, saying a tearful, or convincingly tearful, goodbye at security. But instead of getting on the plane, I'd slip away. Find a cheap, anonymous motel near the airport. Lay low. Cut off communication, claiming spotty international service or busy meetings. And then, wait. Wait for her guard to drop completely. Wait until she felt absolutely safe, secure in the knowledge that I was an ocean away. And then, maybe 4 or 5 days into my trip, in the dead of night, when the world was asleep, I'd come home, unannounced, unexpected. 3 a.m. seemed right. The witching hour. The time when secrets feel safest, when masks slip. It was a terrible plan. Deceitful. Manipulative. Using her perceived tactics against her. It felt like stooping to a level I never thought I'd reach. But the alternative, boarding that plane, spending 10 days torturing myself with imagined scenarios, letting the suspicion fester and potentially destroy me from the inside out, felt even worse. I convinced myself it wasn't about revenge, not primarily. It was about self-preservation. It was about finding the truth, no matter how ugly, so I could finally breathe again, even if that breath was filled with the smoke of our incinerated marriage. The execution began Sunday night. I packed, Olivia helping fold shirts, her movements efficient, her expression carefully neutral. We had a last supper together, the conversation stilted, filled with forced pleasantries about my trip. Going to bed that night felt surreal. Lying next to her, knowing the elaborate lie I was about to spin, felt like the ultimate betrayal in itself. But wasn't she the one who had forced my hand with her own secrets? Monday morning arrived, gray and drizzly, matching my mood. The drive to the airport was thick with tension I could almost taste. Olivia played the part of the dutiful wife perfectly. Concerned questions about my flight, reminders to call when I landed, a lingering kiss goodbye that felt utterly hollow. Have a safe flight, Mark. I love you, she said, her eyes momentarily meeting mine before skittering away. Did I imagine the flicker of relief in them as I turned towards the security gate? I walked through, waved one last time, and then, once out of her sight line, I veered sharply away from the departure gates. My heart pounded. Phase 1 complete. I slipped out a side exit, caught a shuttle to a pre-booked, nondescript motel a few miles away, checked in under a slightly altered name using cash, and locked myself in the sterile room. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing my isolation. The grand deception was underway. 10 days of supposed international business stretched before me, but my real journey was just beginning, a countdown to a 3 a.m. reckoning back home. What would Olivia do, thinking I was 4,000 miles away? What secrets would the house hold when I returned like a ghost in the night? The fear was immense, but the desperate need to know was even stronger. The clock was ticking. The motel room felt like a prison cell, albeit one I had voluntarily checked into. Thin walls, scratchy sheets, the constant hum of the ancient air conditioner. It was the perfect anonymous purgatory for my self-imposed exile. The first day was the hardest. The adrenaline of the escape wore off, leaving behind a gnawing anxiety and the stark reality of what I was doing. I sat there, staring at the blank TV screen, the silence broken only by the occasional muffled noise from the hallway or the sound of my own ragged breathing. I had successfully faked my departure for a 10-day international trip. Now what? Waiting. That was the plan. Wait for Olivia's guard to drop. Wait for her to act on the freedom she thought she had. But waiting is torture when your mind is a battlefield. Every creak outside my motel door made me jump. Every distant siren felt like an omen. I obsessively checked the time, the hours crawling by with agonizing slowness. My phone was a source of both connection and torment. I had told Olivia I'd text when I landed in Berlin. Hours after my supposed flight arrival time, I sent a carefully crafted message, landed safely. Exhausted. Heading straight to hotel. Talk soon. Love you. The response came back almost instantly. So glad you arrived okay. Get some rest. Miss you already. The speed, the effusive emojis, it felt performative. Forced. Like she was ticking the concerned wife box. Or maybe I was just projecting my own deceit onto her. God, this was messing with my head. Over the next few days, we exchanged sporadic texts. I kept my messages brief, citing long meetings, jet lag, and spotty Wi-Fi. She kept up the facade of the loving wife, asking about my meetings, telling me mundane details about her day, what she had for lunch, a funny thing the cat did. It all felt incredibly surreal, like we were actors in a play, reading lines that had no bearing on the real drama unfolding offstage. Did she suspect anything? Or was she completely buying my story, reveling in her newfound freedom? I ventured out only for necessities, cheap takeout food, coffee, pacing restlessly around the motel parking lot late at night when I couldn't stand the four walls anymore. I avoided social media like the plague. Seeing pictures of her, potentially looking happy and carefree while I was rotting in this motel room, felt like it would push me over the edge. But the temptation was immense. What was she posting? Was she being careful? Or was she getting sloppy, assuming I wouldn't see it for days, if at all? The isolation started to wear me down. Doubts crept back in with venomous intensity. What if I was completely wrong? What if Olivia was just stressed, maybe a little withdrawn, but ultimately faithful? What if she was genuinely missing me, and I was here, playing this sick game, destroying the trust between us based on flimsy suspicions and circumstantial evidence? The earring could have been Brenda's. The late nights could have been work. The cologne could have been a random encounter. Maybe Sarah was mistaken about the girls' night. I felt a wave of self-loathing wash over me. What kind of husband does this? Spies on his own wife? Lies to her face? Creates this elaborate, painful charade? But then, I'd remember the look in her eyes when I mentioned the trip. The casual ease with which she lied about the girls' night with Sarah. The secretive phone calls. The defensiveness. The undeniable feeling that something was deeply wrong. My resolve would harden again. No, I wasn't crazy. My intuition was screaming at me for a reason. I had to see this through. I owed it to myself to know the truth, whatever it was. On the evening of the fourth day, Wednesday night, something shifted. I was forcing down a lukewarm burger in my room when my phone buzzed. Not a text from Olivia, but an email notification. It was from our shared home security system. Motion detected, living room, 8:17 p.m. Odd. We usually disable the internal motion sensors when one of us was home. Olivia must have forgotten to turn it off when she got back from work, or maybe she'd accidentally set it off herself. A few minutes later, another notification, motion detected, living room, 8:22 p.m. Then another, motion detected, hallway, 8:25 p.m. My heart started to pound. This wasn't normal. Why would the sensors keep triggering if she was just moving around the house? Unless she wasn't alone. Unless someone else was there with her. Someone who didn't know where the sensors were or didn't care. I opened the security app on my phone, my hands trembling. The app had a feature I rarely used, the ability to remotely view the live feed from the cameras inside the house. We'd installed them mostly for peace of mind when we were both away. Peeking felt like another violation, another line crossed. But the motion alerts. I had to see. I tapped the living room camera feed. It flickered to life, showing our familiar couch, the coffee table, the fireplace. Empty. I switched to the hallway camera, pointing towards the front door. Also empty. My pulse slowed slightly. Maybe it was just a glitch? Or the cat setting it off? Then I remembered the small, discreet camera we had placed on the bookshelf in the corner of the living room, angled slightly towards the kitchen doorway. I tapped that feed. For a second, it was just the familiar view of the bookshelf and the opposite wall. Then, movement. Olivia walked into frame from the kitchen side. Okay, normal. But she wasn't alone. A man walked in behind her. My breath hitched. I didn't recognize him. Tall, dark hair, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt. He followed her towards the couch, out of the camera's main view, but not before he casually reached out and placed a hand on the small of her back. An intimate, familiar gesture. Olivia didn't flinch, didn't pull away. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My vision swam. There it was. The proof. Cold, hard, visual proof beamed directly to my phone from thousands of miles away, or rather, from a few miles away in a crappy motel room. He was in our house. In our house. While she thought I was in Berlin. Rage surged through me, hot and blinding, followed immediately by an icy wave of despair. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. She had brought another man into our home, into our life, the moment she thought I was gone. The calculated nature of it, the sheer audacity, it was staggering. I watched the feed, frozen, for another few minutes. They didn't reappear in the camera's view. What were they doing? Talking? Kissing? More? My mind conjured up agonizing scenarios. The motion alerts had stopped. They had likely settled on the couch, just out of sight. Suddenly, the elaborate plan, the waiting, the 3 a.m. surprise, it felt unnecessary. Redundant. I had the proof right here, on my phone. I could call her right now. Confront her. End it. But, no. That felt unsatisfying. Too easy for her. A phone confrontation? She could lie, deny, hang up. Where was the reckoning in that? The plan, the crazy, deceptive plan I had set in motion, suddenly felt less like paranoia and more like righteous justice. She deserved to be confronted not over a grainy video feed, but face to face. She deserved the shock, the terror, of seeing me appear like a phantom when she least expected it, when she felt safest in her betrayal. The rage cooled, replaced by a grim, chilling resolve. The waiting wasn't over. It had just become infinitely more focused. I knew what I was waiting for now. Not just suspicion, but certainty. The 3 a.m. return wasn't just about finding the truth anymore. It was about delivering the consequences. I saved the video clip from the security app, closed it down, stared at my reflection in the dark motel window. The man looking back at me was someone I barely recognized. Haggard, haunted, but with a dangerous glint in his eyes. The loving, trusting husband was gone, replaced by someone operating on pure, unadulterated betrayal. 2 more nights. I just had to get through 2 more nights. Friday night, 3 a.m. That was the new target. Give her enough rope, let her think she was completely in the clear. Let her enjoy her little tryst. The thought was sickening, but necessary for the plan. The confrontation needed maximum impact. She thought she was playing a game. Fine, let the games continue. But I knew how this one ended. And it ended with me, standing in our house in the dead of night, holding all the cards. The wait continued, but now it had a purpose, sharp and lethal as a shard of glass. Friday, 3 a.m. Judgment night was coming. Those next 2 days were the longest of my life. Knowing what I knew, seeing that video clip replay endlessly in my mind, the man's hand on her back, the casual intimacy in my home, it fueled a cold, simmering rage that barely stayed contained beneath a veneer of forced calm. I kept up the text charade with Olivia. Brief messages about successful meetings, vague complaints about conference food. Her replies remained sickeningly cheerful, filled with heart emojis and misuse. Each one felt like another twist of the knife. She was playing the part so well, utterly convinced I was an ocean away, completely oblivious. The sheer depth of her deception was almost impressive, if it weren't so gut-wrenchingly painful. Thursday passed in a blur of motel room confinement and simmering fury. Friday felt electric with anticipation. This was it. Tonight was the night. I barely ate, pacing the room like a caged animal. My mind raced, rehearsing the confrontation, imagining her face, his face. Would he still be there? The inevitable explosion. Part of me dreaded it, dreaded the finality, the ugliness. But a larger part craved it, needed the release, the validation, the reckoning. As darkness fell on Friday, I checked out of the motel, leaving no trace. I drove towards home, but not directly there. I parked several streets away, in the same hidden spot I'd used before, settling in for the final wait. The hours ticked by with agonizing slowness. 10 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. The neighborhood fell silent. Lights winked out. I watched our house. The downstairs lights were on, just like Wednesday night. Was he there again? The thought made my blood boil. 2 a.m. My heart rate kicked up. I forced myself to stay calm, to stick to the plan. 3 a.m. was the time. Maximum shock value. Maximum psychological impact. Let them feel completely safe, perhaps even asleep, before the phantom returned. At 2:45 a.m., I got out of the car. The silence of the suburban street was absolute. I moved like a shadow, keys clutched tightly to prevent noise. Reaching the front door, my hand trembled as I inserted the key. The lock turned with an almost silent click. I eased the door open, slipped inside, and closed it gently behind me. Darkness. Silence, except for the low hum of the fridge. Just like the other night. But this time, I wasn't uncertain. I wasn't hoping I was wrong. I knew. I took a moment, letting my eyes adjust, straining my ears. And then I heard it. Faintly, from upstairs. Music. Low, sultry music. And a soft, rhythmic creaking sound from the direction of our bedroom. My breath caught. Rage, pure and undiluted, surged through me. There was no hesitation this time. No creeping. I strode towards the stairs and started climbing, not bothering to be quiet. Let them hear me coming. Let the panic begin. Halfway up, the music stopped abruptly. A muffled gasp from the bedroom. Then frantic whispering. What was that? Olivia's voice, high-pitched with sudden fear. A deeper male murmur, unintelligible. Then hurried scrambling sounds. I reached the top of the stairs just as the bedroom door cracked open, Olivia peering out cautiously, her face pale in the dim hallway light filtering from downstairs. Her eyes widened in sheer terror and disbelief as she saw me standing there. Mark? She stammered, her voice barely a whisper. What, how you're supposed to be in Berlin? I didn't answer. I just pushed past her, shoving the bedroom door fully open. And there he was, the man from the security camera footage, scrambling to pull on his jeans, his shirt hastily buttoned wrong, his face a mask of panic. Our bedroom, my bedroom, smelled faintly of cheap cologne and sex. The bedsheets were rumpled, thrown askew. The scene screamed betrayal more eloquently than any words could. Olivia shrieked, stumbling back against the wall. The man froze, looking like a deer caught in headlights, trapped between the bed and the closet. Get dressed, I said, my voice dangerously low, tight with controlled fury. I wasn't shouting. The calmness felt more menacing, more terrifying than any explosion would have. Both of you. The man fumbled with his belt buckle, his eyes darting between me and the door, clearly calculating his escape route. Olivia was sobbing hysterically, clutching a discarded silk robe around herself. Mark, please listen. I can explain it's not what it looks like. I finished for her, my voice dripping with sarcasm and contempt. Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like, Olivia. Looks like you couldn't even wait a few days, could you? Looks like our house, our bed, became your personal playground the second you thought I was gone. I turned my attention to the man, who was now frantically pulling on his shoes. And you? I said, taking a step towards him. He flinched. Get the hell out of my house. Now. He didn't need telling twice. He practically scrambled past me, not making eye contact, yanked the bedroom door open, and bolted down the stairs. I heard the front door slam moments later. Coward. Good. This wasn't about him, not really. This was about her. I turned back to Olivia. She was still leaning against the wall, shaking, tears streaming down her face. The picture of guilt and desperation. But I felt nothing. No pity. No lingering affection. Just a vast, cold emptiness where my love had been, now filled with the bitter ashes of betrayal. How could you? I asked, the question quiet but heavy with the weight of 7 years. In our home? In our bed? Mark, I'm so sorry, she sobbed, the words tumbling out incoherently. I didn't mean for this. I was lonely, things haven't been right with us. It was a mistake, a horrible mistake. A mistake, I echoed, the word tasting like poison. Bringing him here? Lying to me for months? Sending me "I miss you" texts while he's in our bed? That's not a mistake, Olivia. That's a choice. A series of choices. You chose to betray me. You chose to disrespect our marriage, our home, everything we built. I walked over to the dresser, picked up her phone. She flinched as if I were going to hit her. I simply held it up. Berlin, I said flatly. Or should I say, the motel down the road? Watching you welcome lover boy into our house on the security feed was quite enlightening. Her face contorted in fresh horror as the full extent of my knowledge dawned on her. She realized the Berlin trip was the trap, and she had walked right into it. The last of her defenses crumbled. She sank to the floor, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with ragged sobs. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to salvage. The betrayal was too deep, too calculated, too intimate. Forgiveness felt impossible, unthinkable. "Pack your bags, Olivia," I said, my voice utterly devoid of emotion. "I want you out. Tonight." Her head snapped up, eyes wide with panic. "Tonight? Mark, no. Where will I go? Please, let's just talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I interrupted, my tone final. "You made your choice. Now you live with it. Get your things and leave my house." I gestured towards the door. "Or I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." "Your call." The threat was harsh, maybe even legally dubious, but in that moment, I didn't care. I wanted her gone. Out of my sight. Out of my life. Seeing the absolute resolution in my eyes, the utter lack of any lingering softness, she seemed to finally understand. It was truly over. Defeated, she slowly got to her feet, avoiding my gaze, and started numbly pulling clothes from the closet, throwing them haphazardly into a suitcase she dragged out from under the bed. I stood there, watching her, feeling strangely calm. The storm had broken, the truth was out, and the path forward, while painful, was clear. There was a grim satisfaction in the execution of the plan, in the unmasking of the lie. It wasn't the wild triumph I might have fantasized about during those long motel nights, but a quiet, somber vindication. I had trusted my gut, faced the ugly truth, and taken back control. She packed quickly, silently, except for the occasional choked sob. Within 20 minutes, she had 2 suitcases by the door. She paused, looked at me one last time, her eyes pleading. "Mark, is there really no chance?" I just shook my head. No words needed. She turned and walked out of the bedroom, dragging her suitcases behind her. I followed her downstairs, watched her open the front door, step out into the pre-dawn darkness, and close the door softly behind her, leaving me alone in the silent, tainted house. Standing there in the hallway, the silence echoing around me, I didn't feel relief. Not yet. Just a profound sense of loss, of emptiness, but also a flicker of something else. Strength. Resilience. The knowledge that I had survived the worst, faced the betrayal head-on, and chosen my own dignity over a comforting lie. The road ahead would be hard. Rebuilding my life would take time, but I knew, with absolute certainty, that I had done the right thing. Sometimes, you have to burn everything down to clear the ground for something new. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly hope to see you again for more fascinating tales ahead. If you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next adventure. See you soon.